Well, welcome one and all to Bike Racing Without Mercy on the climb in Tenerife, all the way from the coast to the top of T-Day. T-Day, as ever, magnificent. Trying to build a bit of fitness ahead of the Haute Route Crans Montana in early June. And as you'll see now, all has not gone to plan over the last couple of months. Well, as I just touched on the climb in Tenerife, in the build up to the holiday, all did not run smoothly. I managed to pick up 2 very nasty chest infections and coughs in less than 2 months. First one, mid-December, right away through early Jan. It took about 3.5 weeks to shift, and in turn destroyed quite a lot of the fitness improvements I'd made during that nice block, that 5-week block of Zwift Racing and Tempo with VO2 Max Surges. And I was just then rebuilding the fitness quite nicely, using the Tour de Zwift for a bit of fun, plus some structured training, when then, on a flight back home from Frankfurt with work, I was sat next to somebody who was coughing, and sure enough, I picked it back up again, only this time quite a lot worse. So I went to the doctor, was prescribed some medicine, and managed to shift it over about 9 days. Therefore, over the last 5 days, I was able to resume training on the bike tentatively to try and cram a little bit for Tenerife. The first training I'm showing right now on the rollers, on the Villiers, in between the door frame. I can't afford to fall off. The vertebrae, the T8 vertebrae, is still fractured, albeit there's enough connective tissue surrounding it to allow me to get on with life as normal. Anyway, on the Villiers, on the rollers, I targeted a training to kind of discover where my lactate threshold 1 lay. I reckoned, or guesstimated, my LT1 would be about 195 to 205 watts, using the Aciomas as a power source. So I targeted a training for about 75 minutes, riding at 200 to 205 watts. I'm a little ambitious as always, but in amongst that 75-minute block, I had 2 times 20 minutes at low tempo, because I wanted to increase the heart rate using the low tempo, 220 to 230 watts, and then see when I resumed the lactate, or my estimated lactate threshold 1, whether my heart rate would recover nicely, which it did. Therefore, after that training, I had quite a lot of confidence that my LT1, my lactate threshold 1, was about 200 to 205 watts on the Favero Aciomas. And that compares to about 215 watts in early December after all the Zwift Racing and Tempo with VO2 Max Surges, based on how I was able to recover in terms of heart rate between hard efforts, heart rate versus power between hard efforts, but also based on average power I was able to sustain over a couple of longer Tour de Zwift races. Therefore, this morning I had a second little experiment to find out where my anaerobic threshold lay, but with a twist. All the build-up, the recovery and the aftermath at lactate threshold 1, i.e. 205 watts was a target, and then max effort in the 2 times 15 minutes. And for me, it turned out the max effort today, using the Wattbike Pro as the power source, was about 245 watts for block 1 and 241 watts for block 2. Therefore, I reckon my anaerobic threshold on the Favero Aciomas is around about 245 to 250 watts. There's always a 5 to 10 watt difference on the Favero Aciomas versus the Wattbike Pro. Happily, I was also able to sustain the lactate threshold 1 in the build-up and the recoveries, and the heart rate was coming down nicely. Therefore, as we flick back to Tenerife, I'm hoping to gradually improve and build from a lactate threshold 1 of 205 watts and an anaerobic threshold of 240 watts. Fingers crossed. Well, I'm back at a hotel after the hell of a 43-kilometre descent, notwithstanding all of these layers, plus these amazing Café du Cycliste winter gloves. But pretty happy with the overall result. For the segment Playa de Paricio all the way to the top of T-Day, 44 kilometres, 2,000 metres of climbing, you'll see here that my time, 2 hours, 25 and 54 seconds, was only a tad slower than my personal best, averaging 17.8 kilometres an hour. So pretty happy with that. And I went out a little bit too hard at the beginning and paid for it in about the final 15 or 20 minutes. I very nearly bonked. Didn't take any food with me. I figured my breakfast, which you'll see now, would suffice. Nitroglycerine has been added. Just a little bit of zen. But overall, happy with the result. 213 watts I think was the average for 2 hours 25 minutes, and therefore I reckon my lactate threshold one is a tad higher than I'd estimated back home in the UK, and certainly looking forward now to carbing up properly. But check this out as well. Left-right balance, 50-50 for the full climb, and also the hell of the descent. I properly struggled on the descent, notwithstanding, as I say, all the layers. I was really cold. The mind, well, I had a complete loss of confidence, let's put it that way, and also the back was hurting a lot. So I've got a lot to do, not to kind of descend quickly, but to improve my descending and the confidence on the descending if I'm going to take on the Haute Crans Montana in Switzerland. Post-ride nutrition after nearly bonking. That is nearly, not quite, very near. Check it out. And I should also say that I've inhaled a bagel with jam pre-coming down here, and also a nice warm roll as an aperitif to this. But isn't that lovely? My favourite. Cheers, Jay. And I forgot to add that I actually lost a kilogram on that ride without really sweating even very much. Went down from 64.5 to 63.5. Therefore, definitely deserve my fee today. Limoncello. Cheers. I'd actually. Don't think you're meant to have. Don't think you're meant to drink it like a shot.
No, that's it.
Over the next few videos, while showcasing the beauty of Tenerife, I'll cover a variety of lessons learned and relearned, including regaining some confidence following my crash on a steep climb, a Gran Fondo simulation, plus some effective tips as to how to improve your climbing and pacing from an expert on the subject. Also, nutrition to fuel success, and how I've been gradually rebuilding strength in the gym to help my cycling and wider health.